solving radical problems or equations can be fairly simple as long as you pay very close attention to the index value. So as you can remember, the index value would be this tiny little value that is found housed right outside your radical. So this would be your index, and what that tells you is that tells you the power of this radical. So here, in order to solve the radical, since this is totally isolated by itself, we need to get rid of the radical, which says I have to use the same power that you see in your index. So here, what I'm going to do is I am going to take the cube of both sides of my problem. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cube the left side, which means I have to cube the right side. Now, when your index and your power are the same, it means your radical dissolves. So this is going to leave me with 2x squared minus x equals, and then 2 cubed is 8. So now all I have to do is be able to solve for x. So the first thing I'm going to do is move that 8. So this becomes 2x squared minus x minus 8 equals 0. And now you simply need to factor or solve any way possible. There's a few ways that you can attack this. The first is you could factor it using any methods you have at your disposal. The second thing that you could do is you could use your quadratic formula. Whichever method you choose to use is perfectly fine. You have to use what you are comfortable with in order to solve. Some students are more comfortable with factoring, others are not, and so it just kind of depends on what it is you want to do. Okay? So the easiest thing to do is to use your fallback method, which says, when in doubt, fall back to the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We have an a, b, and a c that we could plug in, so you just simply plug and chug. So to do that, it says here that my b is negative 1, so this is negative of my negative 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 1 squared minus 4. My a is 2 and my c is a negative 8 all over 2 times 2. So now we simplify. The first thing that you want to do is you want to simplify the things that are underneath your radical here. And so to do that, I would do that, say, off to the side. And so under my radical, this is what I'm looking at first, is this piece here. So we have negative 1 squared is going to give you 1. And then I have negative and a negative, so this is plus. And this is 4 times 2, which is 8, times another 8, which gives you 64. So here I'm going, and all of this is underneath that radical, and so here this is going to become the square root of 65. Okay. And so what I have is negative times negative is positive, so this is 1 plus or minus the square root of 65 all over 4. And then you would look to see if your square root of 65 is going to reduce any. And go from there. But here, this would be your answer. So we would have that x is equal to, this right here is your following result. Now, what happens if instead of just having one radical, I've got 2 radicals? So what you have to do here is, the first thing you have to do is you have to pick a radical to isolate. So let's go ahead and isolate the square root of x, or the square root of x minus 7. So this means the square root of x moves. So I'm going to be left with the square root of x minus 7 is equal to 7 minus the square root of x. And then the second thing you need to do is you need to remove the isolated radical by squaring it. So we are going to square both sides. So this is going to be that I had that x minus 7, so I'm going to go ahead and square it, which means I'm squaring 7 minus the square root of x. On the left hand side, my radical goes away and is going to leave me with x minus 7. But on the right, I have to FOIL. Okay, and the reason is because I have two of them. 7 minus the square root of x times 7 minus the square root of x. So we're going to go ahead and FOIL this together. 7 and 7 is 49. Then I'm going to have minus 7 root x minus 7 root x. Gives you negative 14 square root of x. And then I have minus and minus, gives you positive. And then this is going to be the square root of x squared. So we can go ahead and we can keep reducing. So this is going to be 49 minus 14 square roots of x plus x. And here we had x minus 7. So once we do that, now you have to work to isolate. So your third step is you need to now isolate your remaining radical. So here essentially what we're doing is we need to get this square root all by itself. So I'm going to take this x and I'm going to move it. In order to do that, it says I subtract x minus x, means the x goes away. I am also going to take this 49 and move it. So I have negative 7 minus 49 is going to give me a negative 56. So I have negative 56 is equal to negative 14 square roots of x. I have to divide everything by 14, and so I'm going to end up with 4 is equal to the square root of x. And now all you have to do again is you are going to repeat step 2. In other words, this is where you are going to square both sides, which will remove the radical. So here this is 4 squared is equal to the square root of x squared. When I square both sides, I end up with 16 is equal to x. Now one thing you always want to do when you find a solution is it's usually a good idea to check that solution. So the last thing that you're going to do here is we are going to check it. And check it as simply says you go all the way back to the problem in the beginning. So we had the square root of x minus 7 plus the square root of x should equal 7. We're going to plug in 16. So here this is the square root of 16 minus 7 plus the square root of 16 should give you 7 as a result. So here we've got 16 minus 7, which is 9. So this is going to be the square root of 9 plus the square root of 16 was 4 equals 7. The square root of 9 is 3, so 3 plus 4 equals 7. So I have 7 equals 7. This is a true statement, which means this is my solution. So there you have it. Two different ways that radical problems can look. One where you have a single radical and the other where you have two radicals. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you had fun and I'll see you next time.